Dana White, current president of the UFC, has been in the news recently following his unwavering stance on fighter pay, and YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul has been one of his loudest critics, suggesting UFC fighters should be guaranteed a slice of the UFC's profits. But White has also recently claimed that other combat sports athletes are overpaid. Today we are discussing Dana's claims that all boxers are overpaid, so don't go anywhere. Let's jump straight in. What exactly did he say? In a quite bizarre outburst, given the fact that boxers put their bodies on the line every time they step into the ring, Dana White last week claimed that some boxers are actually overpaid. He appeared on the Pivot podcast and said that in all walks of life, whatever people's profession is, they will always feel that they aren't paid enough. He then said you will never meet a guy who claims they don't need more money, which seemed as though he was just trying to justify the pittance he pays his fighters. He then went in on boxers specifically, after being continually called out by current boxer Jake Paul. He said, everybody wants more money, and one of the big problems with boxing too is that all those guys are overpaid, and every time they put on a fight, it's a going out of business sale. We're just trying to get as much money as we can from you guys, and then we're out of here. We'll see you in 3 years. Suggesting that all boxers are overpaid shows you just how out of touch Dana White really is. Only the top of the food chain elite level fighters, the Tyson Furies or Canelo Alvarez's of this world, make the really big bucks, which they can't really be denied. They are huge draws and are the reason that pay-per-views make so much money. And who does he think should receive the bigger paychecks? The promoters? Please. What else did White say? Stay tuned to find out. Well, he went on to explain that you can't build a business by paying every fighter what they want, as you would soon go out of business. But that's not the argument. Paul and others who have questioned White's business ethics have simply suggested the UFC pay the fighters a certain percentage. Paul has advocated for the UFC receiving 50% and the other 50% of profits being split between the fighters, which certainly seems like a fairer way of doing things. But the fighters on the roster are currently taking home around 20% of the company's revenue, which when you look at how much they made last year, $5.1 billion, is pretty appalling. The company itself banked around $4 billion last year, which when you look at how much some fighters are paid is pretty appalling. White went on to explain that his incentive structure should be enough for fighters, saying, quote, what we did is we built a business model where if you're the champion, you share in the pay-per-view revenue, unquote. Oh, great. What do you have, 12 champions? What about the other 500 fighters? He went on to suggest that you eat what you kill, meaning if you bring in the viewers, you will get a share of the profits, which simply isn't fair. Some guys don't have the personality to market themselves and like to let their fighting skills do the talking. What do you guys make of White's stance? What is the difference between UFC fighter pay and top boxers then? Let's see. As you probably know, elite boxers are paid much more handsomely than their UFC counterparts, and this issue was brought into focus back in January as Francis Ngannou was taking on Cyril Gane in the first defense of his heavyweight title. Mike Tyson even weighed in and said the $600,000 Ngannou received from the UFC for the fight wouldn't have been enough to pay for his training camp when he was world champ, and that was more than 30 years ago. However, Conor McGregor is currently the highest paid athlete in the UFC, but most of his earnings don't actually come from the promotion. He gets paid more than other UFC fighters as he receives a share of the pay-per-view buys, which the others do too, but when you have maybe 7 of your fights in the top 10 PPV buys of all time list, then this gives you a better idea of what he earns. It is thought he made over £4 million for his 2 fights last year, whereas Kamaru Usman only made $500,000 for his win over Colby Covington, and even less for his knockout win over Masvidal. In contrast, Canelo took home $64 million last year, which gives you an idea of the difference. There has even been talk of Usman boxing Canelo in the next year or so, and now you know why Usman has been so eager to get this one made. So what has been the reaction to the UFC's pay structure? Ariel Helwani has had his say. Helwani and Dana White have a frosty relationship at best. The MMA journalist is never one to shy away from discussing an issue, and fighter pay is a topic he regularly broaches on his MMA Hour podcast. The UFC offers its fighters a show-win type deal, which means they get paid just for showing up and then again for winning. Usually these figures are the same amount. But when you look at fighters like Paddy Pimblett, a superstar in the UK who earned $12,000 by $12,000 in his last fight against Kazula Vargas in London, then you begin to see the problem. That card will have earned the company anywhere up to $1 million, but the biggest star, who everyone has come to see, only gets $24,000? It doesn't seem right, really. Helwani has described the model as antiquated and even disrespectful disrespectful. He said the model is one of the most disrespectful things that continue to happen in our sport, before using Gilbert Burns as an example, saying that Burns definitely deserved to know how much he was making in his last fight against Hamzat. He suggested that the model should be replaced simply by giving fighters who finish their fights a bonus, which he believes will result in more exciting fights. And that makes sense. If someone knows they are going to get more money to finish a fight, they might be more willing to go for it and not rely on the judges to score a decision win. What do you guys make of Helwani's comments? Next up, Tony Ferguson has had his say. Before his terrifying knockout loss at the hands of Michael Chandler last weekend, Tony Ferguson went as far as to compare Dana White to a drug dealer, thanks to the current pay structure. After claiming that Michael Chandler had Dana White privilege in one of the funniest lines in the history of the sport, Ferguson went in on White. Never one to mince his words, Ferguson said, "I think we're underpaid, personally, to be real. I asked Dana to box. He said, F no. I'm like, why? I want to go play baseball. I want to go do other pro sports. I'm an athlete. I grew up playing different sports at a high level." Ferguson then explained he wanted to do different things, but he has, quote, "this guy right here acting like a drug dealer telling me I can't go and do this and that. I want to go make more money for my family," unquote. He even went on to claim he should have sued White and the UFC after he tripped over a wire at a media day before one of the planned Khabib title fights, but claimed that at the time he did what was best for the company. And of course, being a little older now, Ferguson has had time to reflect on the incident and has made his thoughts on how White and the UFC do business abundantly clear. What did you make of Tony's comments? Let's have a look at last weekend's UFC 274 pay then. Well, the payouts from last weekend's pay-per-view card are in, and they make pretty grim viewing. For one champ in particular, Rose Namajunas went into her title defense against Carla Esparza with a 300,000 over 300,000 show win, but of course she lost the fight, so only made the show money of 300,000. Of course, a lot of people will say this is easy enough, but when you think of the sacrifice these guys make during fight camp, plus taxes and paying their coaches and training partners, this 300,000 will probably be a lot closer to 150,000. Charles Oliveira was the evening's big winner, bagging his 480,000 over 480,000 plus an extra $600,000 for his performance of the night submission over Gagey, who made 620,000 for his evening's work. Carla Esparza, who took Rose's title, made a paltry 232,000, but she will now have her contract renegotiated to better reflect her champ status. Michael Chandler can feel hard done by to only receive a performance bonus of $50,000, especially looking at the $600,000 Oliveira took home for his performance bonus. What do you guys make of the fighters' pay from UFC 274? Let us know below. Thanks for stopping by today, and remember to join us next time for more fun and games. And don't forget to like and share today's video, as well as subscribing to our channel for more videos.